We had a little glitch, so sorry for the delay in starting. And today we're talking all about long COVID. So you may be suffering from long COVID and you're wondering what could be one magic thing. Well, we may have it. Brad and I have found this 2025 article. You probably already know about it though, but we're going to discuss it anyway and talk about why it'd be a great help for long COVID, chronic fatigue, autoimmune. It's really a good one, Brad, isn't it, for a lot of
Yeah,
things?
it's a great article, and there's one concern I had with it, but we'll discuss that a bit later. But overall, it gives us a great picture on the benefits of D3 and K2
Here
for
it
immune
is.
health.
Yeah, here it is on the screen. Yeah, sorry to cut you off, Brad.
No, that's all right. You're doing all the tech stuff at the same time. I totally get it.
There's lots of fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
and obviously this is our first live together, but it's a lot of fun.
yeah. Well, I just checked YouTube, and it looks like they can hear us there, so that's all good.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, so vitamin K and vitamin D.
Yeah, look, it's we've got a lot of research that I mean, it's been talked about since COVID, back in 2019,
Yes.
2020. D3 has been talked about, researched, and we know a lot about that. K2 often doesn't get brought into the conversation. And it's great to see this combination. And interesting, the dosages too. It's 2000 IU vitamin D. I wouldn't call that a strong dose, but it's more than the 1000 IU that's commonly recommended, at least if you go to your GP. However, the K2, I don't know what about you, but I often dose it as a maximum of around 180. And it's the MK7 form, and it's 180 micrograms, and they've
The
got it at
K2 here.
240.
Yes,
They've got it at 240 micrograms here, so that's a nice high dose of the K2 in particular.
but not the D.
What?
Yes.
No, just 2000 of the D. So that's interesting, I thought. And I
Yes.
often prescribe D at my low end is more like a 4000 IU. And so
Low end.
you
Yes,
could,
yes. I often do
yeah, so
10,000. Yeah.
yeah, you could argue, so it's lowest sort of dose of vitamin D and a upper end of vitamin K2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you mentioned there about the dosing of vitamin D. Of course, it depends. So many factors. That's why you
Mhm.
need a practitioner to guide you. Weather, where you're living in Australia, where you're living on the globe, but are you living in sunny Northern Territory and you're working in the sunshine every day, or you're in Tasmania? Clearly there's a difference in dosage there. Is it
Yep.
winter? Is it summer? All of that. And the vitamin K, as you say, is a higher dose. So this particular study is kind of got it flipped, but both of those are really hot topics. And I love that you say 2019 because, yeah, it was talked about even before COVID became this giant thing that's only fizzling out. Still, it's being talked about in 2025, but over 5 years, but they were talking about it way back at the beginning. How about giving high dose for COVID?
Yep. Maybe the viewers might want to see us up on screen too. Um, they've got the study going on there, but maybe you want to put us up on there too, Shannon. There we
Yes,
are. There
there
we
we
go.
are. I'm here. You're there.
Hello, everybody. We're back. Um, yeah, so K2, it's not one I go to for immunity necessarily, but as pointed out in the study, there's mechanisms where it does help with immunity and inflammation, and it seems to be very effective in this particular case for long COVID. Now, these are two isolated nutrients working together, and I think it's important to note that they don't work as well isolated if they're not if you don't have other cofactors like your magnesium and vitamin A can play a role in everything to enhance these other nutrients too. And depends on your source too. Obviously, they're
vitamin A
using
can play.
capsules or supplements here, and food sources can be a very important way of getting something like K2, which would speak to a healthy microbiome.
Mm,
And in this case, when we look at COVID, and maybe we could talk a little bit about the pathophysiology of COVID too, which, for those out there not familiar with pathophysiology, basically the mechanisms in which COVID creates the pathology or creates the disease, or in this case, SARS-CoV-2, the infection creating the disease, COVID-19. And we know there's a lot of gut health issues that arise from patients with COVID and in particular long COVID. And these are all these inflammatory markers. And what the study did quite well too is measure these inflammatory markers as well as things like zonulin, which we know is an
mm-hmm,
intestinal permeability marker, and also these fungal markers as well too,
mm-hmm,
and this whole idea of translocation of a fungal infection or translocation of microbes basically,
mm-hmm,
which we hear that sort of terminology used in things like SIBO, small
mm-hmm,
intestinal bacterial overgrowth and so
mm-hmm.
forth, and that's a big part of this picture of long COVID, but look, we talk about long COVID because this is what the paper's about, but immunity over the last few years, a lot of my patients, and I don't know if you've seen this, Shannon, a lot of people are struggling with it and they're getting hit hard, whether it's COVID
Mm-hmm.
infections, influenza, and it's just not getting managed as easily as it was pre-COVID. And
Mm-hmm.
I think these long COVID, um, long COVID, I was going to say outbreaks, but the prevalence of long COVID and altered immunity from a lot of individuals, I think, is playing into this poor immunity that we're seeing in our patients. What do you think on
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah, there was so much in there, Brad.
Sorry, I hit you with a ton of information there, but yeah, you could jump in any time, Shannon.
Yeah, there's so much. You covered the gut, the dosages, and you're getting into reduced immunity now, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, well, yes, definitely. Let's go back to some of the stuff you said because it was all gold. But let's go
Mhm.
back. I'll put the article on the paper on the screen, and you were saying about how this article covers guts and leaky gut permeability and fungal translocation and that. So let's just talk about how the gut, the gut being the base of all disease. This study is about long COVID specifically and immunity and associated things with long COVID. But let's just talk about the gut and that being linked to just about everything, as I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah.
Autoimmunity, fatigue, low immunity in general, all of that.
Well, it
So,
specifically mentioned the gut-lung axis in this paper too, which I
mm,
think is important to discuss as well, given that there's similar cell types in the
yes,
mucosal
yes,
epithelium of the
and mucus
gut
forming
versus,
cells.
yeah, and the
Yeah,
same with the respiratory system.
and that
So,
inflammation. So, if we're
mm,
just to think about this is purely vitamin K. You mentioned also about microbes and healthy gut. So we could talk about the probiotics and fermented foods and all of that producing vitamin K and vitamin
mhm.
D linked to inflammation and then linked to mucous membranes and gut. So what could we talk about a bit more there of the importance of a healthy gut and connections to leaky gut and production of vitamin K? So
Mm. Yeah,
yeah,
so I guess what you've just briefly covered is how the inflammatory processes compromise the integrity of the mucosal lining, whether it's the gut or the lungs. And I think this is important. And I often speak to my patients regarding leaky lung, if you will, the
Mm-hmm.
equivalent in the respiratory system, and what we're seeing in the gut. And I think we know vitamin K2 and D3 have an integral role in repairing the gut and the mucosal layer, improving security of IgA and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition, they have anti-inflammatory roles as well. So yeah, I think it's something you've got to do. Like most conditions these days, you've got to treat the gut, you've got to repair the gut. And what we've seen to a lot of too in the conversation amongst practitioners anyway, is that it does take a bit longer than initially. Now, again, maybe this is worsened after COVID, but we used to look at maybe gut repair as a 3 to 6 month sort of process with intestinal permeability.
Mm-hmm.
And for what it's worth, I think I used to achieve that in a lot of cases pre-COVID. But now a lot of practitioners talk about, well, often leaky gut, intestinal hyperpermeability is you need treatment well past 6 months, and it
Oh,
can be
okay.
up to a year or so. And especially if there's reoccurring infections, high stress, I think plays
Yes.
into it. People's
So,
we know that being outside and being active can really benefit the microbiome and gut health and mucosal health.
yes.
So these are all things that in society in general, where it's kind of deteriorating. We're lacking. We're spending more time behind
Yes.
screens, and that
Yeah.
compromises in many ways.
So do you think, are you saying there that you think after COVID there's more emphasis needed on the gut repair, or it's just coincidence, or a combination of stress and other things are contributing, or can you clarify that a little?
Yeah, I, I've heard through discussions, even presenters in webinars talk about this specifically in where with repairing intestinal permeability, it can take a lot longer, and that
That's interesting.
post 6 months is
Mm.
quite common now,
Mm.
as opposed to I think when you go back to the days where we used to do CDSA stool testing
Mm.
and without the PCR or quantitative PCR testing, and now without metagenomic testing, even back then it seemed to be a very quick process and a lot simpler. Look, could be my perspective on things, could be coincidental, but when other practitioners who are presenting are talking about it,
Mm.
and I even could refer to, I think it was a presentation I saw a couple of years back from Diagnostic Solutions, the lab in the US that does the GI map,
Mm-hmm.
and they were talking about this specifically too. So, and they're quite a
Mm.
big lab, seeing much bigger numbers than the labs that we have over here. So, um, I think
Mm-mm.
this is more common, that we're seeing intestinal permeability
Mm-hmm.
and poor mucosal health in general, not just in the gut, being a lot more difficult to treat and
Mm-mm.
needing a lot more care taken. And now,
Yeah,
whether
that's
that's
really interesting.
stress, whether it's COVID, stress,
Whether it's a
both,
COVID
or other
jabs or
factors.
long COVID or whatever the case, more
Yeah,
chemicals in the food. Health is definitely
uh,
getting worse as time goes on. Combination of everything: high
absolutely.
sugar diet,
Absolutely.
stress, poor sleep, financial stress on everyone. The
Well,
world's
that's a
quite a
big
state.
one, specifically this year too. We can't,
Yes,
that
people.
that
Mm,
is definitely a huge factor this year for sure.
yeah, people losing their
Um,
jobs, inflation through the roof.
yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know if you noticed on this paper, it's something that I haven't taken much note of. Not that I've been reading many COVID papers recently, but uh, the oxidized LDL
Mm-hmm.
is a major driver, major driver of atherosclerosis, but is something that's um, part of the pathophysiology of COVID, long COVID. And for people who are not familiar with that, they might be familiar with LDL cholesterol. When it becomes oxidized, it can damage the endothelium, and we get endothelial dysfunction, which is the tissue within the artery wall. So that's an important inflammatory marker. And now there's all sorts of arguments in the community regarding cardiovascular health, is if oxidized LDL is an important marker or not, because some people would rather point to oxidized LDL and not LDL. Anyway, that's probably another podcast, the whole cardiovascular markers and cholesterol thing. But I think it speaks to high inflammation, and what we found in this study is that was lowered with D3 and K2 as part of the results that came through. In addition to the zonulin, which, if people aren't familiar with, is a marker for intestinal permeability, that was also reduced as well. So again, seeing a lot of great outcomes just from these two nutrients alone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm thinking leaky gut, leaky blood-brain barrier too. While you were talking there about cholesterol, it triggered a memory of hearing a podcast of talking about, well, there has been a drastic increase, especially with younger people with dementia, with long COVID.
Mm.
And there seems to be a connection with way back there was talk of cholesterol and linked to Alzheimer's, but there seems to be something going on with the cholesterol and dementia, and as you say, oxidation of the cholesterol and damaging the leakiness, and
Yep.
gut brain connection as well. So we could do a whole podcast on just that as well. Yeah, and it's early days as time goes on, more and more coming out about the negative effects of long COVID, and it's so broad as well. We're just looking only at today at vitamin D and K, and the benefits of that, and we could jump on here and talk about herbs and other nutrients as well being beneficial. And imagine if you're watching this and thinking about ways to help you, imagine the synergy of all of those things together, taking 10 different herbs and nutrients together. That's going to give you a much better effect.
Yeah, and I would point people to our previous, it's not really a podcast, but it was a YouTube video. It's on my channel. I don't know if you've got it on your channel too, where we talked about acetyl L-carnitine and NAC, N-acetyl cysteine.
Yeah.
Do you have that on your channel too, that one?
Yeah, sure do.
Yeah, so I would suggest people, if they watch this and are interested in what other nutrients can have benefits, especially because you mentioned basically neuroinflammation crossing the blood-brain barrier. So when we have systemic inflammation, we're going to get there's a higher likelihood we're going to get neuroinflammation, and of course brain fog's a major symptom for COVID. And you could use these two nutrients in conjunction with NAC and ALC, and I wouldn't be surprised if creatine was added to the mix, that you'd get a lot of benefits there too, utilizing that. But yeah, we talk a lot about those nutrients in that particular video. So I urge people to go and see that. So maybe you can link it in the description below.
Great idea. Yeah. So if you're out there and you've got this long COVID and you've got the associated symptoms, purely just honing in, like wondering where to start, purely honing in on the inflammation, there are a lot of things and multimodality approach or angles achieving the same things to reduce inflammation. But the foundation being the gut is a really powerful way to reduce inflammation. But we could talk about fish oil, turmeric, throw some in there, Brad. Different herbs like devil's claw or
Yeah, well, I mean, look, you can target if you're targeting the mucosal layer, like you said, the fish oil, the turmeric, and then there's all your prebiotic fibers and probiotics
yeah,
as well.
getting
You
the
know,
gut
things like
healthy is reducing
yep, getting
inflammation.
that you've got to repair intestinal permeability. You know, if it's hyperpermeable, then that's a problem, and then that's going to amplify systemic inflammation. So I think that's something that's got to be a priority. These days, in most conditions we're treating, but specifically for long COVID, definitely gut must be treated first and healed. And also in this, they talk about we've mentioned the fungal translocation.
Mm-hmm.
What's your experience in compromised
Immunocompromised.
immunity and fungal infection? Because I think that's what's going on here, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. A really big problem in a lot of people. It seems to be getting worse, and I wonder if they're becoming like those antibody resistant bacteria, that the fungal
Mm,
strains are also becoming antibiotic resistant. And then the crossover of illness as well, people focusing on, well, was it the jab or the long COVID or whatever the case, or could it be coincidence and they're living in a moldy house,
mm.
or potentially rising damp in their workplace or whatever the case. But problems with fungal overgrowth, really big problem. And
Mm.
oral thrush or sinus fungal agents, when people jump immediately thinking, it's bacteria, ear infection, whatever the case, it could be chronic fungal, lung fungal infections, or both at the same time. And you can see that in nasal swabs, the marcons, or you can see it sometimes in the microbiome, or you can just see it even without testing as well, where people have got athlete's foot or groin thrush or whatever the case.
Yeah.
But
Yep. And in real bad cases, there'll be a discoloring of the skin. You know, you get this yellowy color around,
oh
the
yeah,
eyes and faces and everything, and
mm,
it can be, present really badly.
yes,
Uh, and you mentioned a couple of things there, the mold and so forth,
mm-hmm.
and you know, the what comes to mind is SIRS, so chronic inflammatory um I've got a blank
Respiratory
now. Respiratory syndrome. Yeah, that's what we're
before
talking about.
before SARS
Yeah,
says.
yeah, yes, that's right. And that's usually something that comes up with that whole mold picture or mold
Oh, you're thinking about
evidence.
SIRS,
Yes,
chronic
SIRS,
inflammatory response syndrome.
response
I
syndrome.
was
Sorry.
having a
Yeah,
blank
yes.
too.
Yeah. Sorry, we totally messed that up.
CIRS. We didn't mess
Yes,
it up. We just there's a lot.
CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And look, the bottom line to everything you mentioned there, whether it's the mold-related illness, the SIRS from that, maybe you could
The
talk
mast
about
cell activation, all of those terms.
immunization issues, or long COVID. It's all about this systemic inflammatory picture. So whatever you can do to reduce that inflammation systemically is the focus, regardless of the causal, because we're a bit lost in the specific mechanisms of the cause. We're learning more as time goes on, but if you want to treat things now, you've got to go after the inflammation and the gut, as we mentioned before, that intestinal hyperpermeability, which just exacerbates inflammation or could be the origin of it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important too. And I was really impressed with how well K2 and D3 work on those inflammatory pathways, reducing interleukin 6, and which is a common inflammatory cytokine that we learn about that in first year, I think. And it also reduces Th17 cells. So there's a lot of specifics that the vitamin D3 and K2 are
Mm.
doing
Mm-hmm.
on the biochemical pathways with inflammation. So, they're doing quite a lot for just two nutrients, and that's just two nutrients you
Mm-mm.
could be having amongst, a plethora of different things you could have in
Mm-hmm.
a prescription. And like you
Mm.
said, you could add herbs into the mix and achieve quite a lot there too.
Yes, and they're really multi-action tools. They have such a broad spectrum in their effect.
Yep.
Also, the vitamin, it's been established with the long COVID that there's the microclotting. That's the D dimer there is a good indication of the microclotting. And the vitamin K is quite specifically addressing that, reducing that microclotting. Yeah, there was also, that's right, I remember this, the mention of the change in smell and taste as well was a common one, but it improved that. It was a
Oh,
really
okay. Yep.
great study, really, really good one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned before that I only had one concern, and that was that they didn't. So basically there was um I can't remember, it was 150 odd participants, and um 90 of them, 98 or something, were um, on the vitamin K2 and D3, and then the others received standard care. But the others that received standard care, they didn't get any placebo or anything as well. So
So it'll
that
influence the results.
yeah, so that was the
It wasn't
only
double
thing I
blind.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't completely blind, and that was what was missing. But other than that, I think it shines a light on some very positive results on using K2 and D3 in the treatment of this condition. So,
Yes, there will always be holes in studies with, and we can find faults, especially with natural substances, with herbs or nutrients. There's dosages and forms of those herbs or nutrients, whether they're concentrated or they're biological agents often, and how do we standardize it into a science model and say there is absolutely no room for variation, and this is a absolutely pure test, really accurate with no holes in it. So
mhm.
I can also find a lot more, and if you are watching this and you really love science, then jump on your favorite scientific journal or PubMed or similar, and search for vitamin D and K, and you'll find a lot with long COVID. It's just this particular one was the latest one, and it was, where was it? Obviously 2025. I can't see the month
January, I
there.
think.
Oh, here it is down the side. Received revised January.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure there'll be more, and there's Brad and I may jump on again and talk about another one. Maybe we can continue the discussion of long COVID, Brad.
Yeah, I think there's plenty to talk about, and
Mm.
there's still a lot of concerns, and as a practitioner, I and seeing a lot of people coming through the last two winters with immune concerns. Yeah, I think there's a lot more we need to know to really get on
Yes.
top of this, because I do have some concerns about where immunity is going, and definitely conventional model and going to see your GP is almost fairly useless at this stage. So, yeah, not to pay out on them, but obviously, if you're sick and you need to see them, that's fine. But as far as getting information on this in particular, yeah, it's just not there for the public. It's even hard for us practitioners to decipher a lot of it too. So, and yeah, we just need let's hope the research keeps coming in strong, and that we can understand this a lot better than what we currently do, before the next outbreak occurs.
The next
So,
outbreak.
yeah.
If there is
So,
one.
yeah, well, that's right. If there is one, they keep threatening. So we'll
Keep
see what
threatening.
happens.
Exactly, they threaten.
Mhm.
I think it'll be different this time. A lot more
Well, you hope.
people have a different mindset, Brad. So
Yeah,
mindset
yeah.
is really important.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we've done enough with covering this one, and
Hmm.
that was a great practice run for our first live.
Yeah,
Yeah. So thanks for watching, everyone.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
and see you on the next one. And I'll put links in the description for if we can't get Brad as a collaborator linked in, I'll put his webpage or his YouTube address directly in the description.
yeah, come and visit me.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, see you on the next one.
Bye.